Lisa stood in the center of the great hall, her voice carrying across the crystalline chamber where the planetary council sat in a perfect circle. The walls glowed with soft blue light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. She had prepared for this presentation for 3 years, researching the ancient texts that spoke of beings from beyond their known space. The scattered ones were real, she said, her violet eyes scanning the faces of the council members. Our ancestors wrote about them in the old language. They described travelers who came from a dying world, spreading across the stars like seeds in the wind. Elder Morven leaned forward, his silver hair catching the light. These are myths, young scholar. Stories to entertain children. Lisa shook her head. But what if they are not? What if somewhere out there these people still exist? What if— She stopped. Her mouth hung open mid-word. Every muscle in her body locked. Around her, the council members stiffened. Across the entire planet of Velkara, millions of people froze in place. The telepathic network that connected all Velkarans suddenly screamed with a single sensation. Something vast, something wrong, something that did not belong. The feeling passed through Lisa like ice water. Her twin sister Essa, working in the orbital monitoring station far above the planet, sent a pulse of pure terror through their shared bond. Above us, Lisa whispered. Something appeared above us. The council chamber erupted into confusion. Voices overlapped as the telepathic network buzzed with questions and fear. Elder Morven raised his hand for silence, but before he could speak, the chamber's central display activated on its own. The image showed black space, stars, and then, sliding into view like a predator from the dark, a ship. It was not like anything the Velkarans had seen before. Their own vessels were smooth, curved, grown from living materials that sang with bioluminescent light. This ship was different. It had hard angles and scarred metal. Burns marked its hull in black streaks. Parts of it looked broken, held together with visible patches. Weapons bristled from its surface like thorns on a deadly plant. Defense satellites have locked onto the vessel, announced Controller Venn, his fingers dancing across a light panel. It is heavily damaged but still operational. The power readings are substantial. Who are they? Elder Morven demanded. Why do they not identify themselves? Lisa could not look away from the screen. The ship hung there in the silence of space, and she felt something stirring in her memory. The old texts, the descriptions of metal vessels that carried the scattered ones. A voice crackled through the chamber's communication system. It spoke in a language the Velkarans did not know, rough and urgent. The translation system struggled for a moment. Then the words came through clearly. This world is in danger. The swarm is coming. You have 72 hours. Silence fell across the chamber. Lisa felt her hearts beating rapidly in her chest. The swarm. She had never heard that word before, but the way the voice spoke, it carried weight, terror, exhaustion, and something else, determination. This is a threat, said Council Member Thera, her face pale. They come to our world with weapons and speak of danger. They bring the danger themselves. Or they bring a warning, Lisa heard herself say. All eyes turned to her. Perhaps they are trying to help us. Elder Morven studied the ship on the display. We have lived in peace for 3,000 years under the protection of the Galactic Concordat. If there was true danger, the Concordat would have warned us. May I speak with them? Lisa asked. Let me be part of a contact team. We should learn what they know. The council members looked at each other. Lisa could feel their thoughts touching through the telepathic network, sharing concerns and possibilities. Finally, Elder Morven nodded. Very well. You will go with Ambassador Krell and a security team. But remember, young scholar, sometimes those who speak of danger are themselves the greatest threat. 3 hours later, Lisa stood in the docking bay of the orbital station, watching as a small transport prepared for departure. Her sister Essa gripped her hand tightly. I do not like this, Essa said through their private mental link. That ship feels wrong, dark, like it has seen terrible things. That is why I must go, Lisa replied. To understand. Ambassador Krell approached, his formal robes flowing behind him. 6 security officers followed, though Lisa noticed they carried no weapons. Velkarans did not believe in violence. They had never needed to. The transport launched smoothly, crossing the distance between the station and the mysterious ship. As they grew closer, Lisa could see the damage more clearly. Holes in the hull, some hastily sealed with metal plates, scorch marks that spoke of weapons fire. This vessel had been in a battle, Many battles. They are opening a docking port, their pilot announced. The transport slid into the ship's interior, and Lissa felt the artificial gravity take hold. The air that hissed into their craft smelled strange, metallic, recycled, old. The airlock opened and they stepped into a corridor lit by harsh white lights. A human stood waiting for them. Lissa had never seen a human before, but she knew immediately what he was. The ancient text had described them. 2 eyes instead of the Velkaran 4, skin tones and shades of brown instead of the soft blue of her people, hair that grew from their heads in wild patterns. This human looked tired. Deep shadows hung under his eyes. His uniform was clean but worn. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone who had not slept properly in a very long time. "I am Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth Alliance destroyer Indomitable," he said. The translation came through clearly. "Thank you for coming. I wish we had more time for proper introductions, but we do not. Please follow me." He turned and walked down the corridor without waiting for a response. Ambassador Krell looked offended by the lack of ceremony, but Lissa hurried to follow. Something about the captain's urgency felt genuine. They entered a room filled with displays and control stations. Humans worked at various posts, their movements efficient and practiced. Lissa noticed how many stations sat empty. This ship was built for many more people than currently served aboard it. A human woman approached, her dark skin contrasting with her white medical coat. She smiled warmly at the Velkarans. "I'm Dr. Sarah Okonkwo. I have studied many species, but I have never met your people before. Your telepathic abilities are fascinating." Before Lissa could respond, Captain Chen activated a large central display. "I'm going to show you something. It will be difficult to watch, but you need to understand what is coming." The display lit up with footage from space. A planet hung in the black, green, and blue and beautiful. Then dark shapes appeared at the edge of the frame. Not ships, Lissa realized with growing horror. Living things. Enormous creatures that moved through space like fish through water. Behind them came smaller vessels. Thousands of them, all connected by some invisible link. The swarm fell upon the planet like locusts on a field. They wrapped around it, covered it, consumed it. The footage showed cities burning, oceans boiling away, the atmosphere itself being stripped and processed. Within hours, the beautiful world became a dead gray sphere. Lissa felt sick. Beside her, Ambassador Krell had gone completely pale, his 4 eyes wide with shock. "This happened 4 months ago," Captain Chen said quietly. "The planet was called Haven. 2 billion people lived there. The Krethik swarm gave them no warning, no chance to surrender. They just consumed everything." He changed the image. Another planet dying. Another. 3 more. The Galactic Concordat tried to fight them. They failed. 2 years ago, they began abandoning the outer sectors, focusing their defense around the core worlds. Evacuation orders went out across the standard communication networks. Captain Chen looked directly at Lissa. "Your world never received the warning. Your comm relay is outdated. You have been living in peace, not knowing that the swarm has been consuming everything in its path, moving closer with each world it takes." "How long?" Ambassador Krell whispered. "How long until they reach us?" "Our instruments detected them entering the system 3 hours ago," Dr. Okonkwo said gently. "They are slowing to feed on the outer planets first, building their numbers. We estimate they will reach Velkar in 72 hours. Lissa found her voice. "And you? Why are you here? Why just one ship?" Captain Chen looked at her and she saw something in his eyes that made her heart ache. Loss, determination, a refusal to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. "Because," he said simply, "someone has to warn you. Someone has to give you a chance to fight." The planetary council chamber buzzed with heated debate. Lissa sat in the observation gallery, watching as the council members argued about what to do. Half believed Captain Chen and wanted to prepare for evacuation. The other half insisted this was a trick, that the humans themselves were the real threat. "They show us images," Council Member Thera said loudly, "but images can be false. How do we know this swarm is real? How do we know these humans did not create the footage to frighten us?" Elder Morven raised his hand for quiet. "Ambassador Krell, you spent 6 hours aboard their vessel. What is your assessment?" Ambassador Krell stood slowly. "I believe they are telling the truth. Their ship is damaged from combat. Their crew is exhausted. These are not the signs of an invading force. These are survivors. Survivors who came to us with weapons and warnings of doom. Thera countered. I say we should contact the Concordat ourselves and verify their claims. We have tried, Elder Morven said wearily. Our long-range communications are not functioning properly. We have not received any transmissions from the Concordat in over a year, but we assumed it was technical difficulties. Lisa stood up, her voice carrying across the chamber. Request permission to speak, Elder. Morvan nodded. The Council recognizes Scholar Lissa. I want to return to the human ship, Lissa said. I want to learn more about them, about their culture, their history, their way of thinking. If we are to make a decision about our world's future, we should understand who is trying to help us. Thera shook her head. You are too young, too idealistic. You see adventure and mystery. You do not see danger. Then send someone older and wiser with me, Lissa replied. But we are running out of time. 72 hours, they said. We have already used 12 of those hours in debate. Elder Morven considered this. Very well. You may return to their ship with a diplomatic team. Learn what you can. The Council will continue evaluating our options. 6 hours later, Lisa stood on the bridge of the Indomitable once more. This time, Captain Chen had agreed to give them a full tour of the ship. Dr. Okonkwo served as their guide, leading them through narrow corridors and cramped compartments. We are operating at 25% crew capacity, Dr. Okonkwo explained as they walked. This destroyer was designed for 800 people. We have just under 200 now. What happened to the others? Lisa asked quietly. Some transferred to other ships when we were ordered to retreat. Others died in combat. Some stayed behind to help with evacuations on worlds we could not fully save. Dr. Okonkwo paused at a corridor intersection. Captain Chen refused the order to retreat. He said as long as the ship could fight, he would keep fighting. Keep buying time for people to escape. They passed the ship's medical bay. Lissa saw human crew members receiving treatment for various injuries. Burns, broken bones, exhaustion. The doctor noticed her looking. We have been fighting for 3 months straight, Dr. Okonkwo said. Jumping from world to world, trying to slow the swarm's advance. We have saved 12 planets so far, evacuated populations, given them time to run. At what cost? Lissa wondered aloud. Everything, replied a voice behind them. Lissa turned to see a young human man in an engineer's uniform. He had grease on his face and tired eyes. Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt. I am Lieutenant Torres, Chief Engineer. Dr. Okonkwo smiled at him. Torres here has kept this ship running with spare parts and prayer. Torres pulled out a small photograph from his pocket, showing it to Lissa. 2 small human children smiled at the camera, their arms around each other. My kids, he said. They are safe on Earth with their mother. I volunteered for this mission so they could grow up in a universe where the swarm did not eat everything. Lissa felt something twist in her chest. She thought of her own sister, Essa, of all the young Velkarans who had never known fear or danger. Do you think we can win? She asked. Torres looked at the photo for a long moment before putting it away. I think we can try. That has to be enough. They continued the tour, and Lissa began to understand something about humans. They were scarred, broken, exhausted, but they kept going. They kept fighting. It was not in their nature to give up. In the mess hall, she met more of the crew. There was Chen's second-in-command, Commander Williams, who had lost her entire family on a world called New Providence. There was Sergeant Jackson, a Marine who told stories about his grandmother's cooking while checking his weapons. There was Ensign Park, barely 20 years old, who admitted she was terrified but stayed at her post anyway. Each human she met carried wounds, but each one also carried hope. That evening, Lissa sat with Captain Chen in his private quarters. The room was small and simple. A bed, a desk, and walls covered with photographs. Images of smiling people, of places that no longer existed, my family, Chen said, noticing her looking. My wife and daughter. They lived on New Providence. I was in deep space when the swarm hit. By the time I got the message, it was too late. I am sorry, Lissa said softly. Chen poured 2 cups of bitter black liquid he called coffee. I kept fighting because I had nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. Then I realized something. Every world we save, every evacuation we complete, that is another family that does not have to feel what I feel. Another child who gets to grow up. That became my new purpose. Your people have known so much pain, Lissa observed. I read about your history in your database. The wars you fought among yourselves. The disasters. The struggles to survive. How do you keep going? Chen smiled, but it was a sad smile. Because we are too stubborn to quit. Humans have a saying, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. We fail constantly. We make terrible mistakes, but we learn, we adapt, we survive. My people have never known war, Lysa admitted. We have lived in peace for 3,000 years. We do not understand violence. The thought of fighting, of hurting others, it goes against everything we believe. Then you have been very fortunate, Chen said. But fortune does not last forever. The universe is not a peaceful place. It is beautiful and wondrous, yes, but it is also dangerous. Sometimes the only way to protect peace is to be willing to fight for it. Lisa thought about this. The council will not agree to arm our people. Many believe that becoming warriors means losing who we are. Chen leaned forward. I am not asking you to become warriors. I am asking you to become survivors. There is a difference. Warriors seek out conflict. Survivors do what they must to protect what they love. A chime sounded and Dr. Okonkwo's voice came through the communication system. Captain, you need to come to the bridge. We are detecting movement from the swarm. Chen and Lisa rushed to the bridge. The main display showed the outer planets of the Velkaran system. Dark shapes moved around them. Thousands of bioships feeding on the asteroid fields and outer worlds. They are building numbers, Commander Williams reported, converting matter into more ships. At their current growth rate, they will have doubled their forces by the time they reach Velkara. How many? Chen asked. Current count is 3,000 individual vessels. Projected count at contact 6,000. The bridge fell silent. Lisa did the math in her head. 6,000 swarm ships against 1 human destroyer and whatever civilian vessels Velkara could muster. We need to start evacuations now, Chen said firmly. Every hour we delay costs lives. The council has not approved evacuations, Lisa said. They are still debating. Chen turned to her and she saw the frustration in his eyes. Then make them understand. I have watched 17 worlds die because people waited too long to act. Because they could not believe the danger was real until it was too late. Do not let Velkara be the 18th. Lisa nodded. She felt something changing inside her. The scholar who had stood in the council chamber talking about ancient myths seemed like a different person. She had seen too much now. Understood too much. She activated her communication link to the planet's surface. Elder Morvan, this is Scholar Lissa. I am requesting an emergency council session. The situation has changed. As she waited for the response, Dr. Okonkwo approached her. You are very brave, the doctor said. Coming up here facing these truths, many species we have encountered refused to believe until the swarm was already consuming their worlds. I am not brave, Lisa replied. I am terrified. But Captain Chen taught me something. Being afraid and acting anyway, that is what courage really means. The communication system crackled. Elder Morvan's voice came through, sounding old and tired. The council will hear you, scholar. Return to the surface and present your findings. Lysa looked at the display one more time, watching the dark shapes of the swarm multiply in the outer system. 60 hours remained. She hoped it would be enough time to convince her people to act, because now she understood what Captain Chen and his crew had been trying to tell them all along. Hope was not about believing everything would be fine. Hope was about choosing to fight for survival even when the odds looked impossible. I will be back, she promised Chen. One way or another, we will be ready. Lisa stood before the Planetary Council for the second time in 3 days, but everything had changed. She no longer felt like a young scholar hoping to impress her elders. She felt like someone carrying the weight of her entire world on her shoulders. The swarm is real, she said, her voice steady. It is growing stronger every hour. In 58 hours, it will reach our world. We must evacuate everyone we can and prepare to defend those who cannot leave in time. Elder Morvan studied her carefully. You have changed, young one. Something in you is different. I have seen what is coming, Lisa replied. I have spoken with people who have watched worlds die. They came here to our planet to warn us. The least we can do is listen. Council member Thera stood up, her face angry. You want us to become like them. Like these humans. You want us to arm ourselves, to build weapons, to become violent creatures. We are Velkarans. We do not harm others. The swarm will not care about our philosophy, Lisa said. It does not negotiate. It does not show mercy. It consumes. If we do nothing, we will all die. Our culture, our history, our way of life. All of it will be erased. Better to die as who we are than to live as something else, Thera insisted. Lisa felt anger rise in her chest, hot and unfamiliar. Easy words when you are not the one watching children being consumed. Captain Chen lost his family to the swarm. Dr. Okonkwo left a comfortable life to fight. Lieutenant Torres carries a picture of his children and works until he collapses because he wants them to have a future. They are not asking us to become violent. They are asking us to survive. The council chamber erupted in debate. Voices overlapped, arguments flew back and forth. Lissa felt her sister's presence through their telepathic bond. Asa was in the orbital station watching the swarms approach. The fear coming through their connection was overwhelming. Finally, Elder Morven raised his hand for silence. We will put it to a vote. All in favor of full evacuation and defensive preparations? Hands rose slowly. 5 council members. Not enough. All opposed? 6 hands. The vote failed. Morvan sighed deeply. However, we can agree to a compromise. We will prepare evacuation ships and strengthen our orbital shields. We will not arm our people for combat, but we will train volunteers in basic ship operations and emergency procedures. Those who wish to learn from the humans may do so. Does this satisfy both sides? Reluctant nods came from around the chamber. It was not what Lisa wanted, but it was something. Then let us begin, Morvan said. Scholar Lissa, you will coordinate with the human ship. Organize the volunteers. May the light guide us all. The next 2 days passed in a blur of frantic activity. Lissa barely slept. She moved between the planet's surface and the Indomitable, organizing training sessions and evacuation plans. Captain Chen sent teams of humans down to Velkara to teach the volunteers. Sergeant Jackson ran crash courses in ship operations. Commander Williams taught basic tactical thinking. Dr. Okonkwo showed Velkaran medical staff how to treat combat injuries, something they had never needed to know before. But the cultural gap was enormous. When Jackson demonstrated how to operate a weapons console, many Velkarans became physically ill. The thought of deliberately harming another living being went against their deepest instincts. This is impossible, Jackson told Lissa after the 3rd training session. No offense to your people, but most of them cannot even look at a weapon without getting sick. How are they supposed to fight? I do not know, Lisa admitted. But we have to try. She spent hours with her sister Essa, preparing the orbital station for battle. They reinforced the shields and plotted evacuation routes. At night, they would sit together and talk through their telepathic link, sharing fears and hopes. Are we going to die? Essa asked one night. Maybe, Lisa replied honestly, but maybe not. The humans have survived impossible situations before. Perhaps we can too. On the 2nd day of preparations, Lissa found herself in the Indomitable's library, researching human history. She wanted to understand what made them so resilient. What she found both horrified and fascinated her. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. Nuclear wars, climate disasters, pandemics. They had conquered their own world through violence and blood. But they had also created beautiful art, music, and poetry. They had built civilizations that reached for the stars. They contained contradictions, capable of great cruelty and great kindness. She found records of their wars. The world wars of the 20th century where millions died, but also stories of individuals who had risked everything to save others. Soldiers who had covered grenades with their bodies to protect their friends. Civilians who had hidden refugees from persecution. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Dr. Okonkwo found her there, surrounded by holographic displays. Finding anything useful? I am trying to understand, Lisa said. How do your people carry so much darkness and still have hope? The doctor sat down beside her. We remember. We remember the mistakes and try to do better. We remember the heroes and try to be worthy of their sacrifice. Every human child learns about the wars, yes, but also about the peace that followed. We learn that we can change, that we can choose to be better than we were. My people have never had to make that choice, Lisa said. We have always been peaceful. Now we must decide if we can be something else without losing ourselves. Okonkwo smiled gently. You know what I have learned studying different species? Every culture is defined by the choices it makes in crisis. You are not losing who you are. You are discovering who you can become. That evening, Lissa addressed a gathering of 5,000 Velkaran volunteers. They filled the central plaza of Lumenis, their faces showing a mixture of fear and determination. I will not lie to you, she told them. What is coming is terrible. Many of us may die. But we have a choice. We can run and hope we survive, or we can stand and fight for our home. She paused, feeling the telepathic network pulse with emotion. The humans who came to warn us, they could have run too. Their ship is damaged. They are outnumbered. But they stayed. They chose to give us a chance. Now we must choose what to do with that chance, a voice called out from the crowd. What if fighting changes us? What if we become violent like other species? Lissa thought about Captain Chen, about his sad smile when he talked about his lost family, about Torres and his children's photograph, about Jackson's grandmother's cooking, about all the small human moments of kindness she had witnessed aboard a warship. The humans taught me something, she said. Violence does not define you. Your choices define you. They fight not because they love violence, but because they love what they are protecting. We can do the same. We can defend our world and still remain Velkarans. We can be strong without being cruel. The crowd murmured, the telepathic network buzzing with debate. Then someone began a traditional Velkaran chant, a song of unity and strength. Others joined in. The sound grew, filling the plaza, reaching up to the stars where the swarm approached. Lissa felt tears on her face. Her people were afraid, yes, but they were not broken. Not yet. Later that night, she returned to the Indomitable to report on the progress. Captain Chen looked more tired than ever, but he managed to smile when she told him about the volunteers. You are a natural leader, he said. Your people are lucky to have you. I do not feel like a leader, Lissa admitted. I feel like I am making everything up as I go. Chen laughed, a sound that seemed strange coming from someone so exhausted. That is what all leaders feel like. We just hide it better. He pulled up a display showing the swarm's position. They had finished feeding on the outer planets and were beginning their approach to Velkara. The dark mass of bioships moved through space like a living nightmare. 40 hours, Chen said quietly. Then it begins. Will we win? Lissa asked. Chen was silent for a long moment. Honestly? Probably not. The numbers are against us. But here is what I have learned in 3 months of fighting them. The swarm expects prey to run or freeze in fear. They are not prepared for prey that fights back. If we can surprise them, hurt them, disrupt their coordination, we might create enough chaos for your evacuation ships to escape. And the Indomitable? Lissa asked, though she already knew the answer. We will buy you as much time as we can, Chen said simply. Lissa felt something break open inside her chest. These humans, these strange, violent, hopeful creatures were planning to die for her world. For people they had just met. There must be another way, she said. Some plan where you survive too. Chen put his hand on her shoulder, a human gesture of comfort. Maybe there is. We have 40 hours to find it. So let us not give up yet, Lissa nodded. She returned to the planet's surface and threw herself into preparations with renewed energy. She coordinated evacuation schedules, organized supply distributions, and checked in with volunteers. She barely ate, barely slept. But in quiet moments, when she looked up at the stars, she thought about Captain Chen's words. We are too stubborn to quit. Maybe, just maybe, that stubbornness could be contagious. Maybe it already was. All across Velkara, her people were preparing for something they had never imagined. They were learning to be more than they had been. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to. The swarm was coming, and the Velkarans would be ready to meet it. The warning alarm screamed across every communication channel on Velkara. Lissa jerked awake from a brief sleep, her heart's pounding. Through the telepathic network, she felt millions of minds crying out in fear. They were here. She rushed to the window of her quarters and looked up. The sky was still bright with morning light, but she could feel it through her connection to Essa. Her sister was in the orbital station, watching through the sensors as the swarm emerged from the outer system. Lissa, Essa's mental voice was tight with terror. There are so many. More than the humans predicted. Lissa activated her communication device. How many? 8,000 ships, came Commander Williams' voice from the Indomitable. They fed more than we expected. They are accelerating toward Velkara. Estimated time to orbital space, 6 hours, 6 hours. Lissa felt her legs go weak. They had prepared for 40 hours. Now they had 6. Begin evacuations immediately. Captain Chen's voice cut through the channel. All civilian ships depart now. Do not wait for full capacity. Go. We will cover your escape. Across Velkara, chaos erupted. The carefully planned evacuation schedules dissolved as people rushed to the spaceports. Parents carried children. The elderly were helped onto transports. The telepathic network buzzed with panic, fear spreading like wildfire through the shared consciousness. Lissa ran to the central spaceport of Lumenis. She needed to help organize the evacuation to keep people calm, but when she arrived, she saw the crowds pushing and shoving in their desperation to board ships. Families were being separated. Children were crying. "Please," she shouted, projecting her thoughts through the telepathic network as strongly as she could. "There is room for everyone. But we must be organized. Please trust me." Her mental voice cut through the panic. People recognized her from her speech 2 days ago. Slowly, the chaos began to organize itself. Lines formed. Families stayed together. The ships began launching in orderly waves, but it was not fast enough. Lissa checked the time. 4 hours until the swarm reached orbital space. Half the population was still on the ground. She contacted the Indomitable. "Captain Chen, we need more time." "We will do what we can," he replied. Through the communication channel, she could hear the bridge crew working frantically. "The swarm is splitting into 3 groups. One is heading straight for the planet. The other 2 are trying to flank us and cut off the evacuation routes." Lissa felt cold. "What are you going to do?" "The only thing we can. We are going to hit them as hard as possible and make them focus on us instead of you." In orbit above Velcara, the Indomitable moved into position. The human destroyer looked tiny against the backdrop of space. One small vessel preparing to face 8,000. Captain Chen stood on the bridge, his hands gripping the command console. "All stations report ready," Commander Williams said. "Weapons armed. Shields at maximum. Engines ready for combat maneuvers." Chen looked at his crew. These people who had followed him for 3 months, fighting a war they could not win, buying time for strangers to escape. He saw determination in their eyes, also fear. But mostly he saw people who had made a choice to stand and fight. "Open a channel to all Velcaran ships," he ordered. When the channel opened, he spoke clearly. "This is Captain Marcus Chen of the Indomitable to all Velcaran vessels. Begin your evacuation runs. Stay in the southern orbital corridor. We will keep the swarm away from that vector. Do not deviate from the planned routes. And do not look back. Just run." He closed the channel and turned to his weapons officer. "Target the lead swarm ships. Let them know we are here." The Indomitable's railguns opened fire. Streams of hypervelocity projectiles tore through space, smashing into the front ranks of the swarm. Bioships exploded in bursts of organic matter. The humans cheered as dozens of enemy vessels died, but more came. So many more. "Launch missiles," Chen ordered. "Everything we have." Nuclear-tipped missiles streaked from the destroyer's tubes. They vanished into the swarm's mass and detonated. Brilliant flashes of light turned night into day. Hundreds of bioships disintegrated in the blasts. The swarm's response was immediate. They changed course, abandoning their flanking maneuvers. The entire swarm, 8,000 strong, turned toward the Indomitable. "It worked," Williams said quietly. "They are coming for us." "Good," Chen replied. "That means they are not going for the evacuation ships. All power to forward shields. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." The swarm opened fire. Organic projectiles, biological weapons, energy beams of unknown origin, all of it focused on one human destroyer. The Indomitable's shields flared as they absorbed the impacts. The ship shook violently. "Hull breaches on decks 5 and 7, reported the damage control officer. "Sealing emergency bulkheads. Keep firing," Chen ordered. "Do not stop." On Velcara's surface, Lissa watched the battle through the orbital station's sensor feeds that Essa shared with her telepathically. She saw the Indomitable surrounded by a storm of enemy fire, fighting alone against impossible odds. She saw the human ship taking hit after hit, pieces of its hull breaking away, but still it fought. She felt something rising in her chest. Not fear, not anymore, anger. These creatures, this swarm, they had come to her world to consume everything she loved, and one human ship was standing between them and destruction. One ship was not enough. Essa. She sent through their mental link. "How many Velcaran ships are still in orbit?" "Maybe 300, her sister replied. "Mining vessels, cargo haulers, civilian transports that stayed to help with evacuation. Can they fight?" There was a pause. "They have tools that could be used as weapons. Mining lasers, cargo manipulators. Nothing compared to what the swarm has, but something." Lissa made a decision. She broadcast on all frequencies, speaking both through technology and through the telepathic network. Her thoughts reached every Velcaran in orbit and on the surface. My people, I know we are afraid. I know we have never fought before. I know everything in our culture tells us that violence is wrong. But look at what the humans are doing. Look at that one ship buying us time with their lives. They fight not because they love violence, but because they love life. They fight for us. Strangers they just met. She paused, feeling the attention of millions focused on her. We have a choice. We can run and let them die alone. Or we can stand with them. We can fight for our world. We can be more than we have been. Through the telepathic network, she felt the response. Thousands of minds connecting, sharing thoughts and emotions. Fear, yes, but also determination. Anger at the injustice of what was happening. And something her people had never felt before. The will to fight back. Those of you in ships, Lissa continued, if you are willing, arm your mining lasers and your tools. Join the Indomitable. Show the swarm that Velcara is not defenseless prey. In orbit, 300 Velcaran ships hesitated. Then one by one they changed course. Mining vessels designed for peaceful work turned toward the battle. Cargo ships that had never seen combat moved to support the human destroyer. Captain Chen watched in shock as his sensors showed the approaching Velcaran vessels. What are they doing? I told them to evacuate. They are coming to help, Williams said, her voice filled with wonder. The Velcaran ships were not warships. They were slow and clumsy in combat. Their weapons were mining tools not meant for battle. But there were 300 of them, and they came with a desperation born of protecting their home. A mining ship moved alongside the Indomitable and opened fire with its cutting laser. The beam sliced through a swarm bioship, cutting it in half. A cargo hauler used its manipulator arms to grab an enemy vessel and crush it. A passenger transport rammed a bioship that was targeting an evacuation shuttle, destroying them both but saving the lives aboard the shuttle. Coordinate with them, Chen ordered. Share our targeting data. Make every shot count. The battle became a chaotic swirl of ships and fire. The swarm was still vastly superior in numbers and power. They destroyed Velcaran ships with horrifying efficiency. Lisa watched through S's sensors as ships she recognized, piloted by people she knew, exploded into clouds of debris. But the Velcarans did not break. For every ship destroyed, the others fought harder. They were discovering something about themselves they never knew existed. They could be fierce when defending what they loved. On the Indomitable's bridge, alarms screamed constantly. Hull breaches on all decks, the damage officer reported. Engineering reports the reactor is overheating. Weapon systems failing. Chen looked at his tactical display. The swarm had lost maybe 1,000 ships, but 7,000 remained. And they were pushing through the defense line, getting closer to Velcara. He made the calculation instantly. They could not win, but they could still buy more time. Engineering, he spoke into the communication system. Prepare to overload the reactor. Set it for maximum yield. Lieutenant Torres's voice came back, shaking slightly. Sir, that would destroy the ship. I know, Chen said quietly. But we can take a lot of them with us. And every swarm ship we destroy is one less attacking Velcara. One less chasing the evacuation ships. Williams turned to him. Marcus, there has to be another way. If there is, I do not see it, Chen replied. He looked at his crew. All hands, this is the captain. Abandon ship. Evacuate to pods. That is an order. Sir, we are not leaving you, Sergeant Jackson said from his station. This is not a debate, Chen snapped. You have done your duty. You have fought bravely. Now Lav, go. Slowly, reluctantly, the crew began moving to the escape pods. Chen watched them go. These people who had trusted him, followed him, fought beside him. He hoped they would make it. From Velcara's surface, Lysa felt something shift in the telepathic network. Essa's panic came through like a scream. Lissa, the human ship. Its power readings are spiking. I think they are going to... No, Lisa whispered. She understood. Captain Chen was going to ram the swarm center and explode his reactor. He was going to sacrifice himself and his ship. She broadcast again, her mental voice reaching every Velcaran in the system. The humans are about to make their final stand. They are going to die for us. For people they barely know. This is what courage looks like. This is what sacrifice means. Through the network, she felt the response, grief, admiration, and determination. Her people would not let this sacrifice be in vain. They would remember. They would survive. They would become worthy of what the humans were giving them. The Indomitable turned, all power to engines, and began its final run toward the heart of the swarm. Captain Marcus Chen stood alone on the bridge of the Indomitable. The rest of the crew had evacuated as ordered, though he knew some had refused and were still fighting in the engineering sections, keeping the ship running for its final run. Stubborn, all of them. He would have done the same. The destroyer accelerated toward the center of the swarm. Thousands of bioships turned to face him, their weapons charging. Chen armed every remaining missile, every railgun, every weapon system that still functioned. If he was going to die, he would take as many of them as possible. On the planet's surface, Lisa felt the telepathic network surge with emotion. Every Velcaran was connected, sharing the same thoughts. They watched through sensor feeds, through shared consciousness as the human ship made its suicide run. Then Lisa felt something impossible. The telepathic network was extending, reaching, touching, and somehow, some way connecting with the minds aboard the Indomitable. Captain Chen gasped as foreign thoughts flooded his consciousness. Millions of Velcaran minds all focused on him. He felt their gratitude, their sorrow, their desperate wish for him to survive, and beneath it all, their determination to help. Through this connection, he could see the battle as the Velcaran saw it. Every ship, every movement, every angle. The swarm's formations were visible from 1,000 different perspectives simultaneously. He understood in that instant what the Velcaran telepathy could do. Commander Williams, he spoke into his communication device, reaching the escape pods. Are you receiving this? The telepathic network? Yes, sir, Williams replied, her voice filled with wonder. I can see everything. All our ships. All their ships. It's like having perfect battlefield awareness, Chen smiled. Maybe they had a chance after all. Through the telepathic link, Lisa projected instructions. She had studied military tactics in the human database. She understood strategy now in a way she never had before. And with the telepathic network connecting all Velcaran ships, they could coordinate in ways no other species could. Form a corridor, she broadcast. Create a path for the Indomitable to reach the swarm's center. Protect the human ship. Move as one. The 300 Velcaran vessels responded instantly. They moved in perfect synchronization, impossible coordination. They formed a living corridor through the swarm, their weapons firing continuously to keep the bioships back. The Indomitable plunged through this corridor, its weapons blazing. Chen saw what Lisa was planning. The swarm had a central coordination node, a massive bioship at the heart of their formation that controlled the hive mind. If they could destroy it, the swarm would lose cohesion. But they had to get close enough. And the swarm was realizing the danger. Hundreds of bioships turned to block the corridor. They focused their fire on the Velcaran vessels, keeping the path open. Ships exploded. Lisa felt each death through the telepathic network. Felt the pilots' final thoughts as they died. It was agony, but she kept broadcasting coordinates and strategies. Mining ship Crystal Song moved to Sector 4. Cargo hauler Dawn's Light, cover the left flank. Transport Hope's Promise, fall back. Your shields are failing. The Velcarans obeyed, moving with inhuman precision. For every ship lost, another filled its place. They had never fought before, but they were learning fast. And they were fighting not for glory or conquest, but for survival. For home. For each other. Essa in the orbital station managed the sensor data, feeding information through the network. She could see the patterns, the weak points in the swarm's formation. She shared this with everyone simultaneously. The coordination node is moving, Essa broadcast. It is trying to hide behind the outer ships. We need to flush it out, Chen replied through the telepathic link. It was strange thinking at people instead of talking to them, but it was efficient. Lisa had an idea. What if we threaten something it cannot ignore? Something it must defend? Like what? Chen asked. Itself, Lisa said. The swarm's ships are all connected to the hive mind. What if we attack from multiple directions at once? It would have to choose what to protect. Through the network, the strategy formed in everyone's mind simultaneously. The Velcaran ships split into smaller groups, each targeting different sections of the swarm. The bioships had to divide their attention, splitting their forces, and there, at the center, the coordination node was exposed. I see it, Chen said. Plotting intercept course. All weapons target that node. The Indomitable surged forward. Swarm ships tried to block its path, but the Velcaran vessels rammed them, sacrificed themselves to clear the way. Lisa felt each death like a knife in her chest, but she kept the network focused. Kept everyone coordinated. Chen's ship was dying. Half the systems were offline. The hull was breached in a dozen places. But the engines still worked. The reactor was still building toward critical overload, and the weapons were still firing. 200 meters, he counted down. 100 meters. 50 meters. The coordination node tried to flee, but it was too late. The Indomitable crashed into it at full speed, and Chen detonated the reactor. The explosion was like a second sun being born. A sphere of nuclear fire expanded outward, vaporizing everything nearby. The coordination node disintegrated. Hundreds of bioships caught in the blast were destroyed instantly. Through the telepathic network, every Velkaran felt the explosion. They felt Captain Chen's final thought. Good luck. Then he was gone. For a moment the battle paused. The swarm ships stopped moving, their connection to the hive mind severed. They drifted, confused and directionless. Lisa felt tears streaming down her face, but she did not stop. Now, while they are disorganized, drive them back! The Velkaran ship surged forward. They destroyed the confused bioships methodically, efficiently. Without coordination, the swarm was just individual creatures, dangerous but manageable. But then the swarm adapted. The bioships began to regroup, forming new patterns. They were establishing a secondary coordination system. The battle was not over. In the orbital station, Essa made a discovery. Lysa, the escape pods from the Indomitable. There are survivors, 37 of them, including Dr. Okonkwo and Commander Williams. Hope sparked in Lysa's chest. Not all the humans had died. Some had survived. Rescue them, she ordered. Bring them to the station. But the swarm had noticed the pods too. A group of bioships broke away, moving to intercept and destroy the escaping humans. Lisa did not hesitate. She was not a pilot. She had never flown in combat before, but she ran to the orbital station's docking bay where her personal transport was berthed. The small vessel she used for traveling between the planet and orbit. Essa grabbed her arm. What are you doing? The humans sacrificed everything for us, Lisa said. I will not let their survivors die. She launched before Essa could argue. The small transport was not armed, not meant for combat. But it was fast. She pushed the engines to maximum, racing toward the escape pods. The swarm ships saw her coming. They opened fire. Lysa dodged, her hands moving on the controls, guided by instinct and desperation. Energy beams flashed past her hull. She felt impacts, heard alarms screaming. Hold on, she broadcast to the humans in the pods. I am coming for you. She reached the first pod and activated her transport's docking clamp. The pod attached with a solid clunk. Then the second pod. The third. Her small ship was not designed to carry this many, but she kept going. A bioship moved to block her path. Lisa saw the weapon ports opening. She was going to die. But at least she would die trying to save those who had saved her world. Then a Velkaran mining ship appeared from nowhere, ramming the bioship. The pilot's mental voice came through the network. Go, Scholar. Save them. The mining ship exploded along with the bioship. Lisa did not have time to grieve. She collected the last pods and turned back toward the station, her transport's engines straining under the overload. More Velkaran ships appeared, forming a protective formation around her. They had seen what she was doing. They understood. These humans had earned their protection, their sacrifice. Lisa made it to the station with all 37 escape pods attached to her ship. As she docked, rescue teams rushed to open the pods and bring the survivors inside. Dr. Okonkwo emerged, bruised and shocked but alive. Commander Williams followed, her uniform torn and bloodied. Lieutenant Torres held his photograph of his children, tears on his face. You came for us, Okonkwo said to Lisa. You risked yourself. You risked everything for us first, Lisa replied. We just returned the favor. Back in the battle, the swarm was slowly being pushed back. Without their coordination node, they were losing cohesion. The Velkaran ships, guided by the telepathic network, fought with a unity the swarm could not match. But the cost was terrible. Of the 300 Velkaran ships that had joined the fight, fewer than 100 remained. Thousands had died. The telepathic network carried their final thoughts, their love for their world, their determination that others should survive. Hour by hour, the battle continued. The Velkarans were exhausted, their ships damaged, but they did not stop. They had learned something about themselves. They could fight. They could endure. They could win. Finally, as Velkara's sun began to set, the last swarm ship was destroyed. The debris field in orbit told the story of a battle that should have been impossible to win. Silence fell across the telepathic network. Then slowly a sound began. Not a cheer, not a celebration. A mourning song. A traditional Velkaran melody for honoring the dead. Every surviving ship took up the song. On the planet's surface, millions joined in. They sang for their own dead. They sang for the humans who had given everything. They sang for Captain Chen, who had bought them time with his life. Lisa stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, watching the debris field drift in space. Beside her stood Commander Williams, now the senior surviving human officer. "What will you do now?" Lisa asked. "Your ship is gone. Your captain is dead." Williams was quiet for a long moment. "We will rebuild. Find other survivors. Keep fighting the swarm wherever it appears. That is what Marcus would have wanted." "You could stay here," Lisa offered. "Velkara owes you a debt we can never repay." Williams smiled sadly. "No, we are warriors now. We cannot stop fighting while others are still in danger. But we will remember this world. Remember that sometimes peace-loving people can become the fiercest fighters when defending their home." In the days that followed, Velkara mourned and rebuilt. Monuments were erected to the fallen. The council, humbled by events, stepped down and allowed new leaders to emerge. Leaders like Lisa, who understood that peace must sometimes be protected with strength. The surviving humans prepared to depart aboard a Velkaran ship, heading back to human space to report on the battle and continue the fight against the swarm. Before they left, Lisa visited Dr. Okonkwo one last time. "Will we see each other again?" Lisa asked. "I hope so," Okonkwo replied. "Your people have changed, Lisa. You are still Velkarans, still peaceful at heart. But now you know you can be strong too." "That is a valuable lesson," Lisa nodded. She thought about Elder Morvan's question from days ago. Had she changed? Yes. Had her people changed? Yes, but they had not lost themselves. They had simply discovered they were more than they had believed. 6 months later, Lisa stood before the completed monument in Lumenis's central plaza. It was a statue of a human ship, the Indomitable, rendered in crystalline Velkaran art. At its base were inscribed the names of everyone who had died in the battle, both Velkaran and human. She had been appointed as Velkara's first ambassador to humanity. Tomorrow she would depart on a journey to Earth, to the homeworld of the species that had saved hers, to tell them about Captain Chen's sacrifice, to forge an alliance between their peoples. But tonight she stood at the monument and remembered the moment she had frozen mid-sentence when a single human ship appeared above her world. Remembered everything that had followed. The fear, the preparation, the battle, the cost. She looked up at the stars, no longer afraid of what might be waiting there, because now she knew. The universe was dangerous, yes, but it also contained people like Captain Marcus Chen, people who would sacrifice everything for strangers, people who believed that some things were worth fighting for. And if humans could be that way, maybe Velkarans could too. Maybe any species could when it mattered most. "Thank you, Captain," she whispered to the stars. "We will not forget. We will not waste what you gave us. We will be worthy of your sacrifice." Above her the stars shone bright and infinite, and somewhere among them other worlds waited. Other battles, other chances to prove that hope could survive even the darkest times. Lisa smiled. She was ready. Her people were ready. Together they would face whatever came next. Because that was what survivors did. They fell down 7 times and stood up 8. They scattered but endured. And they never ever abandoned those who needed them. The humans had taught them that. And it was a lesson Velkara would carry to the stars.